What's up, Broncos country? In today's edition of Bronco Talk, it's the day after edition where we go over the news and storylines after the Week 5 victory over the Las Vegas Raiders. So let's talk Broncos.
What do you want to do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
I know. Let's talk Broncos.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Bronco Talk, where we talk Denver Broncos football. In today's episode, we're going to look at the Bo Nix, Sean Payton storyline, jabbering at each other on the sideline, and what I really think happened and whether or not I think that's going to be a problem going forward. But first things first, I live in an area where there's a heavy saturation of Raiders fans, and I haven't been able to do this in quite some time, just walking around town in my Broncos gear the day after the Broncos beat the Raiders, and the looks I got, the comments that were made, it just made me feel a little good. The Costco clerk was like, "We can't help you here." It was pretty funny. And then of course there's a few of Broncos country just trickled out in the masses, and I got a fist bump. I got, go Broncos here and there. And it felt pretty good to be walking around with your chest a little higher, head a little higher, walking among the Raiders faithful, if you want to call them that. It felt really good. And another thing that felt good was this jersey. I'm still wearing it from yesterday. The Raiders didn't make me sweat too much during the game, so it was pretty fresh. And so I threw it back on today. And I don't know if there's some fondness with it. There's some just like it looks awesome, honestly. It makes you question why the Broncos ever went away from this look. I know that we were viewed as the not so lovable losers in these uniforms, and not everybody was on board when we made the uniform switch, but that was when I was pretty young, and there was some fondness to it. I remember, just in my youth, Terrell Davis in this uniform, and there was a lot of fondness to it, but it wasn't a staple in my household. Obviously, repping a John Elway throwback, and I've had this in the closet for a number of years, but to see it on the field, man, there's been a couple of analysts and reporters and people in the media that have said, we should make these our number one unis and kind of do a alternate jersey with the current jerseys or something. I don't know exactly the logistics of what other people think, but at the heart of it, until the Broncos come up with a new design that Broncos country can get behind, I really like the idea of the Broncos going back to the early 90s, mid 90s look, and just owning that. You saw the Jets do something similar where they had recently over the years, over the last couple of decades, they've had a numerous amount of looks, and they've kind of gone back to the look that the New York Jets just their fan base really loves. And what more could you ask for to have Broncos country, who fully backs these unis, just pour in and know that these are the look that they're gonna get, and these are the ones that the Broncos fan base, the Broncos country loves, and the Broncos fans are gonna see that every Sunday. That's just a thought that I had going into this game. I really like them as an alternate jersey, and I love the fact that we were wearing them for the first time in a long time. And I've really wanted the Broncos when they before Peyton Manning, when they would wear the blue as their home jerseys, as their main home jerseys. Wanted the Broncos, who are known as Orange Crush, who their color is orange, to go to an orange primary, and they did. And then that was great, but something about yesterday, just seeing Riley Moss getting a pick, seeing PS2 take a pick six back in these uniforms with the light blue and the old school D. It was really awesome to see. I don't think the allure or the fondness would wear off. Honestly, I think it would just be a really cool deal if we did move to these as our primary uniforms. But that's enough about that. It feels good, especially after a victory, whatever uniform you're wearing. So Next topic is the Bo Nix and Sean Payton spat. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you have, especially in Broncos country. On the sideline during the telecast, they even showed it where Bo Nix and Sean Payton were going back and forth, and really Bo Nix was, if from my perspective, giving Sean Payton a nearful. It wasn't where you look back at Sean Payton and Russell Wilson's situation, and Sean Payton was doing most of the talking. In this case, it was the other way around, and I really like how Bo Nix and Sean Payton both handled it. And it's easier to handle these things after a win. You could look at the turmoil or the storyline between Robert Saleh and Aaron Rodgers, hug or no hug type of deal. But this was less celebratory and more, especially because Troy Franklin didn't haul in the pass on the play. This was more about structure and play call and so on and so forth. And it was pretty fiery. And after the game, if you look at the press conference, which if you haven't, I would suggest that you do, because I replayed the Bo Nix part of that a handful of times, a ton of times I've played it. I probably will go back and watch it another 10 or 12 times just before dinner. But that being said, it was playful in nature. There was some truth out of Sean Payton of why that really happened. But in reality, the way that I look at it very differently than I look at the Russell Wilson or even the Aaron Rodgers situation. I look at it as this was about a play call. So this was very, in that regard, similar to the Russell Wilson situation. I do believe the Wilson situation had to do with a play call and how it was run or not run or whatnot. And Sean Payton's very particular. And I think if you look back at it, although Sean Payton in his press conference said, "No, God, no, I wouldn't tell you what it was about," and Bo Nix, spoiler alert, said it was Sean Payton saying he loved him, and Bo Nix turning back and saying "I love you too," which was very funny because in Sean's version of the press conference, he did say that that's his love language, just a little bit of loudness, a little bit of banter back and forth. So good play on each other. It was very playful, and obviously, winning by 14 points or what have you, 16 points, excuse me, would add that element into it. It's more soft-spoken. It's more something to laugh about because it's coming off of a victory. But even if it wasn't, I believe that these two guys know that their relationship's going to continue to grow. I think that it speaks confidence on how Bo Nix feels in Sean Payton as a leader so that he can voice his opinion. He can be loud and demonstrative, and Sean Payton's not going to take offense to that. He knows when to press the kid and when to back off, and you kind of saw him back off and let Bo speak his piece and go on about his day. And then it came in a victory, so it's all love and hugs afterwards. And then the press conference, the way that Bo Nix delivered it, he seemed very intense and serious, and then he just, while the question was being asked, and then he hit you with the humor, and that was awesome. I think that speaks to the maturity of Bo Nix. I think that there's numerous things that were said in his press conference, even speaking to the drop or what Bo Nix would classify as a bad throw of Troy Franklin and how he took that onus on himself. So from Jump Street, I've believed that Bo has the maturity, the skill set, and everything necessary to be a professional quarterback. I just go back to the fact that there's a lot of complexity in the Sean Payton scheme, and that's why I thought that the growing pains that Bo was going to feel in his rookie season were almost unnecessary. If you just let the kid sit, learn the terminology, go out there day one of training camp next year, he's able to just make the calls, make the checks, adjust the play. He would have all of that in his repertoire day one of next season, but that's not how we're doing things, and that's okay. I've made my peace with it. I'm just over-explaining my thought process going into this, his skill set, his demeanor, and he's a coach's kid, so talking to the media and in his press conference, it was very funny and mature of Bo Nix to be able to address not only the Sean Payton situation, but also the Troy Franklin drop and anything else, why he really liked repping these jerseys. He spoke to how his dad, his favorite player was John Elway, and he busted out a John Elway throwback that he's had in the closet similar to me. So maybe Bo and I will eventually get on the same page. I think I like what the kid is doing, how he's showing his moxie and his maturity on and off the field. That being said, I look at this, and my initial take from the actual Sean Payton and Bo Nix spat was similar to the Bridgewater issue that came about in his. It wasn't the same situation, but it was similar as far as opinion on how someone should handle something. In the game, the announcer said, "I think this is good. I think Sean Payton last year dealt with Russ kind of tucking his tail and walking away, where Bo's giving it back to him." And my initial thought is, it could be good or bad. And the reason why I compare it to the Teddy Bridgewater situation, something happened in Teddy Bridgewater's tenure at Denver where there was an interception and Teddy Bridgewater kind of just took the high road and let the guy go back and take it for 6. And the fan base, the media, everybody everywhere kind of berated this guy and said he should have went for the tackle. And then he throws an interception to Daniel Sorensen probably a week later, 2 weeks later, and he gets absolutely thumped when he tries to go for a tackle. So it could be good. It could be bad. We'll have to see. I don't believe there's any issue here in Broncos country. I don't believe there's any sort of underlying complexity to this matter. It's just on the surface, two competitors that were getting fiery over. I mean, D-Mac on the post game said that, I don't know if anybody follows D-Mac. If you do, you might know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you should. D-Mac was on the field talking about he thought that this had to do with the couple plays before where Bo wasn't under center and Wattenberg snapped it as if he was under center. And then if you look at the press conference between Sean Payton and Bo Nix, and they kind of give it away without really giving it away in other questions where they talk about whether the play should have been flipped or shouldn't have been flipped. And that's really what I think it was about. Bo flipped the play. Sean Payton didn't want him to flip the play. Bo was like, I had a guy wide open based on their personnel. Isn't that what you want me to do? Like, what are you talking about? Like, kind of like, Sean Payton in his press conference. I'm going to basically give you a highlight of their press conferences in this video. But Sean Payton, mentioned Ferris Bueller and how he had a little bit of, knuckleheadedness or he's kind of hard-headed and kind of unintentionally kind of mischievous. Well, Bo is flipping the play, and it almost seemed like a father-son type of deal. Like, you told me to do this, don't you remember on the third day again? Where it was kind of like, I wouldn't say it was a gotcha moment by the son to the dad, but you know what I mean? Where maybe Bo remembers something being coached on day one of OTAs or who knows what the really root of the reason why it was flipped. But Bo saw something. He took it upon himself and flipped a play. He had a wide open Troy Franklin. If it's a score, it's a much different conversation on the sideline, I think. It went right through Troy Franklin's hands. And I think, honestly, the way Sean Payton approached Bo Nix, it was more in a coaching manner. And Bo took it as, like, don't do that. And Bo got pretty heated. And Sean Payton was trying to talk him off of a ledge, and then eventually, kind of thumped him on the chest, and he walked off. And it was all happy hugs and smiles after the game, of course. But that's really my take on it. It was about that play where Troy Franklin dropped it. The play got flipped when Sean Payton didn't want it to. And although Bo Nix appears to be right, you got a guy streaking down the sideline wide open. It's hard to argue that was the wrong call, but it's nothing. It's just a young guy that's leading this team and getting fiery, and his head coach probably honors it. I think that there was a storyline, if I remember correctly, I saw something where Sean Payton even spoke to how he liked the competitive nature. So no issues here. Not gonna see any ongoing storylines or issues when you watch this team 3 weeks from now. I doubt there's going to be any mention of what happened yesterday. And then going forward into week 6, I think the Bo Nix, Sean Payton storyline kind of dominated the after week 5 storyline type of deal. Riley Moss getting his first interception and not having a celebration lined up was kind of a cool storyline. How, it was just in the moment and he got that interception, and it was really cool to see. And then obviously Patrick Surtain, he got 2 interceptions. One taken back to the house. And then another one to pretty much ice the game. You know, it wasn't garbage time, but it was a very nice play, batting a ball away from Bowers into the air and kind of getting his own tip drill kind of deal. It was impressive, even though maybe to the naked eye it didn't look as impressive. But you see a guy dominate the number one option on the other offense, tipping a ball back up to himself. That was pretty nice to see. And then something I didn't know yesterday until late in the day was that Champ Bailey and Patrick Surtain did a jersey swap before the game, so added that element. That was pretty cool to do a jersey swap with the last great cornerback in Denver. I know we brought over Aqib Talib, and I'll always enjoy those times with Aqib Talib. Little bit of insight from me back when Aqib Talib was drafted to Tampa Bay. That was one of my top guys, and when Patrick Surtain was drafted, he was my guy I wanted the Broncos to draft. So a little bit of back and forth as far as Aqib Talib and Pat Surtain. I like them both, but really, if you look at it, Champ Bailey spent a decade in Denver, and probably I think it was more than a decade in Denver, and he was the face of the defense even when John Lynch came in. So in comparison, Champ Bailey and Patrick Surtain, kind of the guy as far as the cornerbacks are concerned. So no disrespect to Aqib Talib, definitely enjoyed his time in Denver as well. Going forward, though, into week 6, the schedule makers didn't really do Denver much favors in regard to the whole season. We got back-to-back games on the East Coast. Then we come home and we play the Raiders, which division opponents, I didn't really think it was going to come down to one score, but a lot of times they do. And then hit us with back-to-back division opponents. And not only that, but the Chargers are coming off of a bye. So although we played them at home, the Chargers got a lengthy amount of time to prepare and heal up. We know that Justin Herbert's dealing with a little bit of an ankle, leg deal, plantar fasciitis. Who knows what's what. And the Chargers' offense, as far as the run game, looks pretty stout. And I don't really sleep on Jim Harbaugh's preparation and ability to get his team ready to go up to the task. So something to look for going forward, but we're still all celebrating over here at Bronco Talk after a Week 5 victory over the Las Vegas Raiders, and this was a long time coming. Haven't celebrated a Broncos victory over the Raiders since 2019, so we're still celebrating in our throwback Elway jersey. But at Bronco Talk, I just like to ask you to like this video, comment, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue to stampede together all season long. And I'll see you next time on Bronco Talk.